You've just stepped off the ship, cruise high still buzzing, thinking the hard part's over. Wrong. What happens next could cost you hundreds, maybe thousands of dollars, and the cruise lines are counting on you not knowing these hidden traps. I'm talking about 10 post-cruise dangers that could absolutely wreck your vacation afterglow. From mysterious credit card charges that appear weeks later to automatic renewals that'll drain your bank account monthly, these aren't just minor inconveniences. They're financial time bombs waiting to explode. Here's what the cruise industry doesn't want you to know. Your responsibilities don't end when you walk down that gangway. Some of the costliest mistakes happen in the first 48 hours after you get home. I've seen passengers lose their entire cruise refund because they didn't know about these post-cruise pitfalls. But every single disaster is completely preventable if you know what to look for. Ready to cruise smarter and keep your money where it belongs? Let's dive in. Right, picture this. Sarah from Michigan gets home from her Caribbean cruise, unpacks her bags, and goes back to normal life. 3 weeks later, she's scanning her credit card statement and nearly chokes on her morning coffee. There's a $347 charge from the cruise line that she definitely didn't authorize. During her cruise, Sarah used her cabin key card to buy drinks and souvenirs, just like millions of other passengers. But somewhere in that maze of onboard transactions, either her card got charged for someone else's spa day, or a crew member made an honest mistake that turned into Sarah's expensive problem. The cruise lines are banking on you not catching these errors. They know most people don't scrutinize their statements right away, especially when you're dealing with post-vacation blues and catching up on work. By the time you notice that mysterious charge, you're often past the dispute window, and suddenly that error becomes your permanent donation to the cruise line's bottom line. But here's the kicker. Unauthorized charges aren't even the worst part. I've seen cases where passengers' credit cards were skimmed during onboard transactions, leading to fraud that didn't show up for months. One family from Texas didn't realize their card information had been compromised until they started seeing charges from random merchants across 3 different countries. Your move? Check every single credit card statement within 48 hours of getting home. Don't just glance at the total. Examine every line item with a magnifying glass. If something looks off, dispute it immediately. Most credit card companies give you 60 days to challenge charges, but the cruise lines have their own internal deadlines that are often much shorter. Trust me, spending 10 minutes reviewing your statements now could save you hundreds of dollars later. But credit card charges are just the beginning. Wait until you hear about the photo trap that catches thousands of cruisers every single month. Meet Jennifer, a first-time cruiser who thought she'd struck gold when the ship's photographers captured her family's perfect vacation moments. Professional shots of their formal night, candid pictures from the deck party, even that hilarious photo of her husband trying to escape the conga line. Dozens of memories that would be worth every penny. Jennifer figured she'd browse the photo gallery when she got home and had time to really look through everything. Big mistake. Huge. When she finally logged into the cruise line's photo portal 2 weeks later, she was greeted with a message that made her stomach drop. Photos from your cruise have been removed due to storage limitations. Here's the dirty secret cruise lines don't advertise. Your vacation photos have an expiration date, and it's usually between 30 to 90 days after your cruise ends. Once that deadline passes, those professional photos vanish into digital oblivion, and there's absolutely nothing you can do to get them back. The cruise photography industry is a multi-million-dollar operation that relies on impulse purchases and time pressure. They take thousands of photos during your cruise, then use artificial scarcity to push you into buying packages before the photos disappear forever. It's psychological warfare disguised as customer service. But here's what makes this even more frustrating. The cruise lines often don't clearly communicate these deletion policies during embarkation or when they're daily newsletters. You might get a small print mention in a contract you signed months ago, but good luck finding that information when you actually need it. Your defense strategy is simple but time-sensitive. Log into your cruise line's photo portal within 1 week of disembarkation. Browse everything they captured, bookmark the shots you want, and make your purchasing decisions quickly. Don't wait for the perfect moment to review hundreds of photos. That moment might cost you all your vacation memories. Speaking of deadlines you never saw coming, let's talk about a financial trap that could cost you even more than lost photos. David thought he was being generous when he prepaid gratuities for his 7-day cruise. $98 automatically charged to his room for tips to housekeeping, dining staff, and other service workers. What he didn't expect was service so poor that he actually wanted some of that money back. His cabin steward showed up exactly twice during the entire week, and the dining room service was so slow they missed half their dinner reservations. When David got home and saw that $98 charge on his final bill, he assumed it was too late to do anything about it. Wrong. Dead wrong. And that assumption cost him nearly $100 that he could have gotten back with a simple phone call if he'd known about the cruise industry's best-kept secret. Here's what the cruise lines don't want you to know. Those automatic gratuity charges aren't actually automatic at all. They're suggestions that you can adjust, reduce, or even remove entirely if you're not satisfied with the service you received. But there's a catch. You usually have to dispute these charges within 30 to 60 days of your cruise. The cruise industry has trained us to think of gratuities as mandatory fees, like taxes or port charges. They automatically add these charges to your bill and present them as non-negotiable expenses. But in reality, gratuities are exactly what the name suggests: voluntary payments for good service. If the service wasn't good, you shouldn't have to pay for it. The process is usually straightforward. Call the cruise line's customer service department, explain the specific service issues you experienced, and request a partial or full adjustment to your gratuity charges. Most cruise lines will honor reasonable requests, especially if you can provide specific examples of poor service. But here's the crucial part. You have to act fast. Those dispute windows close quickly, and once they're closed, you're stuck paying for service you didn't receive. Don't let politeness or embarrassment cost you money that rightfully belongs in your pocket. The clock is ticking on more than just gratuities, though. Wait until you hear about the insurance deadline that could cost you thousands. Picture this nightmare. Robert's dream. Mediterranean cruise turned into a medical emergency when he slipped on a wet deck and shattered his ankle on day 3. The ship's medical center patched him up, but the real treatment had to wait until they reached the next port, where he spent 2 days in a Spanish hospital and racked up $8,000 in medical bills. Robert had been smart enough to buy comprehensive travel insurance before his cruise, so he figured he was covered. He'd deal with the paperwork when he got home and felt better. That casual attitude toward filing his claim cost him every single dollar of those medical expenses. Here's the brutal truth about travel insurance. Having a policy doesn't guarantee coverage. The insurance companies have strict deadlines for filing claims, and if you miss those deadlines by even 1 day, your policy becomes worthless paper. Most travel insurance policies require you to file claims within 30 to 90 days of the incident, but some have deadlines as short as 20 days. Robert didn't know this. He spent 3 weeks recovering from his injury, another week catching up at work, and finally got around to filing his insurance claim 45 days after his accident. His policy had a 30-day deadline. Game over. $8,000 down the drain because he missed an arbitrary deadline buried in the fine print. The insurance industry profits massively from missed deadlines and incomplete paperwork. They collect premiums from millions of travelers, then use bureaucratic obstacles to deny claims whenever possible. It's a system designed to protect their profits, not your financial well-being. Your survival strategy starts before you even leave home. Read your travel insurance policy like your financial life depends on it, because it does. Understand the filing deadlines, the required documentation, and the specific procedures for different types of claims. If something goes wrong during your cruise, start the claims process immediately. Don't wait until you feel like dealing with paperwork. Time is your enemy when it comes to insurance claims, but it's also your enemy when it comes to recovering lost luggage compensation, which brings us to our next costly mistake. Mark's suitcase never made it onto his Alaska cruise. The airline promised it would catch up with the ship at the next port, but 7 days later, Mark was still wearing the same clothes he traveled in. The cruise line offered him a $50 credit toward onboard purchases, barely enough to buy 2 t-shirts from the overpriced gift shop. When Mark got home, he filed a claim with the airline and figured that was the end of it. 3 months later, he received a form letter saying his claim had been processed with a settlement offer of $125. For a suitcase containing $800 worth of vacation clothes, formal wear, and personal items. This felt like highway robbery. Here's what Mark didn't know. That initial settlement offer was just the opening bid in a negotiation he didn't realize he was having. Airlines and cruise lines count on passengers accepting lowball offers because most people don't understand they can and should fight back. The lost luggage industry operates on the principle of maximum profit through minimum payouts. They'll offer you just enough to make you go away, hoping you'll take the easy money rather than document your actual losses. But if you know how to play their game, you can often recover 70 to 80% of your legitimate expenses. Your strategy requires persistence and documentation. Keep every receipt, take photos of everything you had to buy as replacements, and maintain detailed records of your communications with the airline or cruise line. Most importantly, don't accept the first offer. Counter with a detailed breakdown of your actual losses. The squeaky wheel gets the grease in lost luggage claims. Companies will often increase their settlement offers significantly for passengers who demonstrate they're not going away quietly. But there's another post-cruise danger that's even more serious than lost luggage, one that could affect your health. Lisa felt a little queasy on her last day aboard the ship, but she chalked it up to too much rich food and maybe one too many pina coladas. 2 days after getting home, she was violently ill with what she assumed was a stomach bug. She toughed it out for 3 days before finally dragging herself to urgent care, where she tested positive for norovirus. By then, Lisa had unknowingly exposed her entire office, her family, and dozens of strangers to a highly contagious illness that swept through her workplace like wildfire. What started as just feeling a little off turned into a public health nightmare that could have been prevented with earlier medical attention. Cruise ships are floating petri dishes where thousands of people from around the world share enclosed spaces, buffet lines, and recycled air. Norovirus, respiratory infections, and other contagious illnesses spread like gossip in middle school. The cruise lines know this, which is why they have extensive sanitization protocols. But those protocols aren't foolproof. Here's what makes post-cruise illness particularly dangerous. Symptoms often don't appear until after you've disembarked and returned to your normal life. You could be contagious for days before you realize you're sick, potentially spreading illness to everyone you encounter. The responsible thing to do is monitor your health carefully for at least 2 weeks after your cruise. Any symptoms, fever, nausea, respiratory issues, unusual fatigue, should be taken seriously and evaluated by a medical professional. Don't assume it's just vacation exhaustion or rich food catching up with you. When you do seek medical attention, tell your healthcare provider that you've recently been on a cruise ship. This information helps them consider diagnoses they might not otherwise think of and take appropriate precautions to prevent spread to other patients. Your health isn't just about you, it's about everyone you might expose if you're carrying something contagious. But speaking of things that can get you in trouble after your cruise, wait until you hear about the customs violation that could land you in federal hot water. Quick note before we continue. If you're finding these post-cruise dangers as eye-opening as I am, hit that like button and subscribe so you never get stung by cruise industry tricks again. Trust me, the next few dangers are even more costly than what we've covered so far. Tom thought he'd scored big at the ship's duty-free shop, loading up on premium liquor, expensive perfumes, and luxury chocolates to bring home as gifts. He'd spent over $600 on items that would have cost twice as much back home, feeling pretty smug about his savvy shopping skills. His smugness evaporated at customs when the officer asked him to declare his purchases. Tom had blown past his duty-free limits without even realizing there were limits, and his great deals suddenly came with an additional $180 in duties and taxes, plus a lecture about customs violations that could have resulted in much steeper penalties. Here's what the duty-free shops conveniently forget to mention. Duty-free doesn't mean unlimited free. Every country has specific limits on how much alcohol, tobacco, and other goods you can bring back without paying additional taxes. Exceed those limits, and you're liable for duties that can wipe out any savings you thought you were getting. The United States allows returning citizens to bring back $800 worth of goods duty-free, but there are specific quantity limits that can trip you up. You can bring back 1 liter of alcohol duty-free, but that second bottle of rum puts you over the limit. 2 cartons of cigarettes might seem reasonable, but you're only allowed 200 cigarettes duty-free. What makes this particularly frustrating is that the cruise lines actively encourage you to buy more than you can legally bring home duty-free. Their sales staff won't warn you about customs limits because they're focused on maximizing sales, not protecting you from import violations. Your defense is simple. Know your limits before you shop. Research the duty-free allowances for your home country and stick to them religiously. If you're tempted to buy more, calculate whether the total cost, including duties and taxes, is still worth it. Remember, customs violations aren't just expensive. They can result in confiscated goods, hefty fines, and in extreme cases, criminal charges. Don't let a shopping spree turn into a legal nightmare. But speaking of legal nightmares, our next danger involves technology traps that keep costing you money long after you're home. Rachel needed internet access during her cruise to stay connected with work, so she signed up for the ship's Wi-Fi package, $89 for unlimited access during her 7-day voyage. What she didn't notice in the fine print was that she'd also enrolled in an automatic renewal program that would charge her credit card $89 every month for continued access to maritime internet services. 3 months later, Rachel discovered she'd been paying $89 monthly for internet access on a cruise ship she hadn't been on since February. When she called to cancel, the customer service representative cheerfully informed her that the auto renewal terms were clearly disclosed in the agreement she'd signed, buried in paragraph 47 of the dense legal text nobody actually reads. The cruise internet industry has discovered a goldmine in auto renewal subscriptions. They know most passengers sign up for internet access without carefully reading the terms, and they're counting on you forgetting to cancel these recurring charges when you get home. Here's what makes this particularly insidious. These auto renewals often don't provide any actual service after your cruise ends. You're paying monthly fees for access to ship-based internet that you can't use unless you're literally on that specific cruise line's vessels. It's like paying for a gym membership at a gym that only exists in international waters. The cruise lines justify these charges by claiming they provide continued access to their internet services on future cruises. But since most people don't cruise monthly, you're essentially paying for a service you may never use again. Your protection is simple but crucial. Before you disembark, log into your cruise line's internet portal and cancel any auto renewal subscriptions. If you can't find the cancellation option online, go to the guest services desk and have them cancel it in person before you leave the ship. Don't trust that you'll remember to cancel when you get home. The cruise lines are banking on your forgetfulness, turning into their monthly profit. But internet charges aren't the only recurring nightmare waiting for you at home. Wait until you hear about the social media trap that could get you sued. Emma thought she was being friendly when she posted dozens of cruise photos on social media, including shots of crew members who'd provided excellent service, candid pictures of other passengers enjoying themselves, and even some behind-the-scenes glimpses of crew areas she'd been allowed to visit during a ship tour. 6 weeks later, Emma received a cease and desist letter from the cruise line's legal department, demanding she remove specific photos that violated crew privacy policies and ship security regulations. Apparently, some of her innocent vacation shots had captured restricted areas, identified crew members without their consent, and potentially compromised ship security protocols. Social media has created a legal minefield for cruise passengers who don't understand the complex privacy and security regulations governing maritime vessels. What seems like harmless vacation sharing can actually violate federal maritime laws, crew employment agreements, and passenger contract terms that you agreed to when you booked your cruise. Crew members have specific privacy rights that extend beyond the ship. Many cruise lines prohibit passengers from posting identifiable photos of crew members on social media without explicit written consent. That selfie with your favorite bartender could violate his employment agreement and put his job at risk. Ship security is another major concern. Photos that show restricted areas, security equipment, or operational details could potentially be used by bad actors to plan illegal activities. Maritime security agencies take these threats seriously, and they don't distinguish between innocent vacation photos and potential intelligence gathering. Your social media strategy should include a careful review of all cruise-related content before posting. Remove or blur faces of crew members and other passengers, avoid posting photos of restricted areas, and be cautious about sharing too much detail about ship operations or security procedures. When in doubt, don't post it. The temporary satisfaction of sharing vacation photos isn't worth the potential legal headaches or privacy violations that could follow you home. But privacy violations are just the beginning. Our final danger could expose you to identity theft and financial fraud that lasts for years. Karen didn't think twice about providing her credit card information, passport details, and personal contact information when she booked her cruise. After all, she was dealing with a major cruise line with millions of satisfied customers. What could go wrong? Everything, as it turned out. 8 months after her cruise, Karen received a letter that made her blood run cold. The cruise line had suffered a massive data breach affecting over 2.3 million passengers. Her name, address, passport number, credit card information, and even her cabin preferences were now potentially in the hands of cybercriminals. The cruise industry has become a prime target for hackers because of the massive amounts of personal and financial data they collect. When you book a cruise, you're not just giving them your credit card number. You're providing passport information, emergency contacts, medical details, and travel preferences that create a complete profile criminals can use for identity theft. Here's what makes cruise line data breaches particularly dangerous. The stolen information often includes everything criminals need to open new accounts in your name. Your passport number, combined with your personal details and travel history, creates a golden ticket for sophisticated identity theft schemes. But here's the kicker. Many cruise lines don't immediately notify affected passengers when breaches occur. Karen received her notification 8 months after the breach happened, meaning criminals potentially had 8 months to use her information before she even knew it was compromised. The aftermath of a cruise line data breach can haunt you for years. Identity thieves can use your passport information to apply for credit cards, open bank accounts, or even book travel in your name. The combination of personal and financial data from cruise bookings makes these breaches particularly valuable on the dark web. Your protection strategy starts immediately after any cruise. Monitor your credit reports obsessively, set up fraud alerts with all major credit bureaus, and consider freezing your credit if you're not actively applying for new accounts. Change passwords on all financial accounts, especially if you use the same password for your cruise booking that you use elsewhere. Don't wait for the cruise line to tell you about a data breach. They may not know about it themselves, or they may delay notification for months. Take proactive steps to protect yourself because once your identity is stolen, recovering from it can take years and cost thousands of dollars. There you have it. 10 post-cruise dangers that could cost you serious money, compromise your health, or even land you in legal trouble. The cruise industry profits when you don't know about these hidden traps, but now you're armed with the knowledge to protect yourself. Here's the bottom line. Your cruise responsibilities don't end when you walk off that ship. Stay vigilant, act quickly on potential problems, and never assume that everything will just work out automatically. Thanks for watching. Type "smooth sailing" in the comments if you made it through all 10 dangers, and tell me which one surprised you the most. If you want to avoid even more cruise industry tricks, click the video appearing on your screen right now to learn about booking scams that could ruin your next vacation before it even starts. Until next time, cruise smart and protect your wallet.